My young grammar school-age son had a medical issue and needed to have a procedure. My husband hasn't worked for 9 months after leaving his previous job, and my salary is barely enough to get us by. My husband bought some expensive things when he used to get paid. He had a high-paying job and saved no money. Instead, he bought some costly stuff for himself. He had to sell most of it to be able to buy new clothes or get a new iPhone. He had an expensive wristwatch that he was keeping to wear on important occasions. We discussed coming up with money to pay for the procedure, and he refused to give up the watch, telling me to find some other way to get the money, even when he knew I couldn't. He suggested that our son stay on meds to manage the pain until I came up with the money, but the procedure was advised as soon as possible. I couldn't bear seeing my son go through so much pain, so I went ahead and sold the watch and paid for the procedure. My husband found out and immediately said that he considered this stealing and that he wouldn't look at me the same anymore. He didn't yell or react harshly. He just kept saying that I committed theft and that I'd overstepped and betrayed his trust. After that, he stopped saying anything else to me, just that what I did was stealing. His family sided with him, and my mother-in-law, who I'm not on good terms with, suggested that he either divorce me or get a lockbox to keep his stuff safe. Since I stole from him before, I was so devastated by how I was treated and thought I was doing the right thing. Now, he's making me feel like what I did was really stealing, regardless of the reason why I did what I did. In his opinion, it is really stealing. Am I the idiot? Take up your mother-in-law's advice and divorce him. He was happy to see your son, who I presume is also his, in pain for the sake of a watch. Ask yourself what he contributes to the marriage or your and your son's life. You're already supporting the household on your income alone. He's a mooching mother's boy, and you deserve more. Yep, she definitely needs to move all her income into a lockbox, aka separate account, to stop him stealing it if she hasn't already done that. As said, trust is blown. A man so immature, selfish, and pathetic, who will prioritize a watch over his child's health, isn't worth having around. Op should send the toad back to his mommy. She would be better off without him. Yes, when my dog needed knee surgery, I literally gave blood and plasma and got a second job waiting tables to pay for it because I couldn't stand the idea of my baby in pain. The father of your child put a watch before him. It isn't a family if he is the one his father carried in his butt, even just something he got that he hasn't really ever been able to afford. Get out, girl. It is just an expensive watch. What good is it being expensive like an investment if you can't sell it when your poor son needs help? I struggle to believe any judge or jury would consider this theft, even if it is stealing. Morally, you did the right thing. I would have done just the same in your situation. Your husband suggesting jeopardizing your son's health and subjecting him to unnecessary suffering for the sake of a witch watch is sick. You have grounds for divorce. Take him to court and let a judge shame him for the idiot that he is. If you divorce, you'll get child support, which would likely be more than he contributes now. I am a teen female who lost my mom 15 weeks ago. It's been a nightmare. I still live with my stepdad and stepsister. I do have other family, and a part of me would prefer to be with my biological family members. However, my mom wanted to try and make this work, so for her I'll try a while longer. My bio father doesn't want to know, so it's not like I have another parent. Mom married my stepdad when I was a preschooler, and my stepsister was a pretween. She hated Mom and everything about her for as long as I can remember. She gave her such a hard time. My stepsister lost her mom when she was a toddler, and even though Mom never tried to erase her mom or make my stepsister call her mom or anything, she was always throwing it in her face that Mom had replaced hers. Even though she didn't remember her mom, she was really obsessed with the idea that my mom was some evil person who went in and stole her mom's life. My stepsister had all kinds of therapy growing up. When she had her daughter a few years ago, she often leaned on Mom to babysit her. She still treated Mom like trash, but Mom was free, and babysitting, and Mom adored that little girl. She saw her as a grandchild, even though my stepsister didn't let her daughter call Mom grandma or anything. Even when my mom was sick, she babysat. My stepsister has been complaining about paying for childcare since Mom died. She said some really awful things since my mom passed away. She and my stepdad fought a little over it, but he doesn't want to lose her, his only kid, and his grandkid. But it bothers me. My stepsister has expressed how glad she is that her daughter won't remember my mom and that she won't ever be mentioned around her child. How she won't even let her see photos of my mom. Then she said my mom had been a pathetic waste of oxygen, and how good it was not to deal with her anymore. I snapped and asked her why she let mom babysit her kid so much if she was such an awful person. And I told her she should look in a mirror because she's the one who turned out to be a truly awful person. My stepsister told me I had no right to question her and that I should shut my mouth around her. My stepdad said nothing, but he gave off the vibe that he didn't like me speaking to his daughter like I did. Am I the idiot? You already know why your stepsister leaned on your mom for babysitting. Because she was willing, free, and easy to use. Your stepsister's hatred of your mom wasn't about her being evil or any of the twisted stories she fed herself. It was about keeping her own victim narrative intact, so she could justify her anger and resentment at losing her own mother. You've been the only one in that house capable of seeing your mom's worth, and that terrifies your stepsister. Because deep down, she knows she's been the real problem all along. And yet, you're still waiting for your stepdad to stand up for you when he's already shown that his priority is to keep his daughter happy, not to protect you or your mom's memory. Why are you still trying to maintain a bond in a family that never actually valued you or your mom? And are you ready to confront what that says about your need for their approval? Girl, it's time to move in with your bio family. You should not be subjected to someone who disrespects your mother this way, and your weak, idiot stepdad is going to do nothing for you. Also, you need to be careful. Your stepsister doesn't turn that hate and animosity towards you now that her preferred target isn't there and use you as a babysitter. By the way, OP, hide your mom's photos and find a relative who will keep them for you if you can. People like your stepsister destroy photos as an act of revenge. I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine your mom would have wanted you surrounded by this toxic crap. Stay with your bio family. My fiancé and I were together for 3 years, and I proposed to her 5 months ago. We had our wedding scheduled in 4 months. I love my fiancé, but one thing that always bothered me was her insecurity. Her previous partner of 4 years cheated on her, and she had a hard time trusting anyone after that. My fiancé was very overbearing and protective, and I had to slowly cut off contact with 2 of my female friends because of her insecurities. She also needed a lot of reassurance. However, it didn't bother me too much because I loved my fiancée and wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. That's why I proposed to her, and that's why we'd made life plans. To give some backstory, my family, mom, dad, sister, and me, had a tradition where we went on a 1-week vacation to a different state every year. We had this tradition since I was a kid, and we did it every year without fail, even when my sister and I became adults. However, over the past 6 years, it's just been me and my sister taking the vacation, as our parents have become old and just don't have the energy anymore. We decided to vacation in Aspen, Colorado, in August of this year. My fiancée wanted to come to Colorado too, but I told her this was a family tradition, and she'd already gone on a vacation with me a few months ago. So, my sister and I took a vacation in August. I told my fiancée the hotel and room number I'd be in. My fiancée always wants these details when I go on vacation without her, and I always give them to her. I saw no issues with it, it was just my fiancé's insecurities again. But a couple of days into our vacation, early morning, my fiancé had knocked on the room of the hotel my sister and I were at. My fiancé had booked a ticket to surprise me, and while she was very excited to see us, my sister was less than thrilled. In fact, she was pretty angry, but she acted normally in front of my fiancé to maintain some decorum. Later, she asked me in private if my fiancé was someone I really wanted to marry. She expressed concerns that if I did marry her, she would probably isolate me from my family too. The remaining 3 days of the vacation were sort of awkward. However, my fiancé was oblivious to it. By the end of the vacation, I had reached my tipping point. When we came back home, I broke up with my fiancé. I didn't want to break her heart, and I'm really worried about how she's handling the breakup, but I just don't think my fiancé and I are compatible to live together for life. Am I the idiot? Imagine the surprise of having someone knock on the hotel door of a brother and sister. If she was willing to disregard your long-standing family traditions and ignore the clear discomfort from your sister, that's a big red flag. It's important for a partner to respect your boundaries and relationships with family. Your fiancé wasn't oblivious to it. She knew but didn't care. Imagine disrupting someone's plans and making them a third wheel on a holiday they paid for and used their time off work for. She knew how much she was overstepping and just didn't care. She'd been expressly told he didn't want her to go, and insert herself. It was a sign this was going to be a trend, and she wouldn't respect his boundaries. That said, I have to admit I find it really weird that he said she couldn't come because it was a family trip to someone he was about to make a member of his family. Often, all of our siblings go on vacation with our spouses and kids after several years into a relationship, or at least as soon as I'm engaged, my partner becomes part of my family. If he's good enough to be invited for Christmas, he's good enough to participate in other family traditions too. What was OP's plan, and why wouldn't his fiancée be included in these family trips? It's weird. You'd think he'd want to include her. I am 28 years old, female, and currently work for a large organization. It's my first job out of college, and landing this position was a big deal to me. I'm on a fixed-term, 2-year contract, and my employment is scheduled to end during the week of a major conference the day before a high-profile event, the event that I helped organize. For context, this conference is massive, with thousands of participants, including some known figures. During my time here, I've worked on a 3-person team focused on a significant project. The other 2 members of my team, the project manager and second-in-command, were scheduled to leave in the summer. This meant I'd be the only remaining member of the original team to help organize the event during the conference. Knowing this, I anticipated issues, especially since their replacements would need time to get up to speed, and there could be technical problems with such a large event. So, a few months prior, I met with the people who fund my position and asked if they would consider granting me a 1-month extension so I could be around for the event. They told me that although nothing was guaranteed, given the circumstances, a contract extension would likely be possible if we applied. I subsequently discussed this with my supervisor. She politely and honestly responded that a 1-month contract extension wasn't feasible. I understood her position, so I took that as a clear indication that no extension would be pursued. I accepted that my last day would be during the week of the conference. Fast forward to this week. The new project manager asked if I could help with the event, even though it takes place the day after my contract ends. The team didn't have a say on the day the event would take place. It's just one day. But here's the issue. One of the new team members is on leave until 2 days before the event, and another is sick with an uncertain return date. Even if both are present, they haven't had enough time to get fully accustomed to running such a large meeting, and they're bound to be logistical challenges. The project manager said she spoke to our supervisor about a 1-day extension for me. Still, the supervisor said that I could volunteer if I wanted to help. The project manager has been really kind throughout my time here, so I feel bad for the situation she's in, but I'm frustrated. I saw this problem coming months ago and tried to address it, but my request was essentially dismissed, even after I was told that funding for a contract extension would be likely. Now, I'm being asked to step in without compensation. I'm not going to work for free, and I feel like it's unfair to be put in this position when I already raised concerns and offered a solution months ago. At the same time, I understand that my supervisor's workload was substantial when I asked for an extension. Am I the idiot for not volunteering my time to help with the event? Not the idiot. I wish I could write this more loudly. You basically went out of your way to highlight risks, and the company was too cheap to make accommodations for possible eventualities. You owe them nothing. Walk away and feel no guilt. Or offer to stay if they're willing to extend your contract for as long as you wish to negotiate. I am both enraged and highly amused by their sense of entitlement. The goal is to say that you could offer to volunteer, just wow. Exactly this. Their plan was always to guilt you into working for free on that day, and I think that was exactly their plan from the moment it was brought to their attention. As the project manager, I think it's nervy for her to approach you to be the free solution to the problem she pointed out to months ago. It seems manipulative, darling. They could easily pay you for an extra day, but they have chosen not to. Also, if anything were to happen during said event, you would not be covered by the company's insurance, putting yourself further at risk. You have fulfilled your contract, and they have chosen to be unreasonable about 1 day's pay. You now know whom you've worked for, It's time to do better and move on. Let me start by saying this: I've been called a rude person in the past. Oftentimes, I blurt out things I think without considering if it would hurt someone. Over the years, though, I've gotten better at it. This year, I made it into my dream college. I come from an extremely low-income household, so I worked on scholarships, awards, and much more to get into this college. I took student loans out to afford the remaining part of my tuition. Now, for my freshman year, I didn't really try to find out if I could choose my roommate or anything. I went for someone random. The girl I'm rooming with is quite the opposite of me. She comes from a wealthy, well-to-do family from overseas. She honestly acts like a brat. I've constantly seen her lock down or hide her expensive jewelry, as if she believed I would steal it. She constantly talks about how she misses her home, the amenities, and the people. For the first week or so, I understood because I was homesick as well, but then into the third and fourth week, I'd walk into the room to see her crying about how tough it is having to do everything by herself. She complains about the cost of taxi and has to cook and clean herself. By the second month, I'd walked in to see her so many times with a bottle of wine that I finally told her, "Don't come to college if you aren't prepared. Then go back home. You don't need to whine about it so much when a very simple solution is available to you." She was visibly upset and left the room. I barely ever see her in our room anymore. She sleeps elsewhere. At first, I didn't care because she didn't make it a big deal. Yesterday, I asked a guy in one of my classes out. He was cute and sweet. We usually talked a lot during class, and I wanted to pursue the relationship. He rejected the offer politely and said one of the reasons was that 1, he wasn't interested, and 2, he heard I was generally a rude person. My roommate, I texted her to ask why she talked about me being rude. She said she was just talking to her friends about something that made her upset. However, I know she isn't friends with the guy in my class, as he mentioned he'd heard from someone neither of us knew. I'm honestly peeved and want to know if I was the idiot. So, I could consider apologizing. You are the idiot. Locking down or hiding expensive jewelry makes sense when you live with someone, whether or not you trust them, especially during the first few weeks of living with them. Are you dumb? Yes, people living away from friends and family will miss them. You sound like a brat who had a crappy childhood and expects everyone to be as awful as you. Yep, coming from money doesn't make a person automatically an idiot, and that fact is so irrelevant to the story that it's weird the OP included it. She didn't lock her jewelry because she's rich and you're poor. She locked it because she's rooming with a literal stranger. If it was her best friend, she wouldn't. Wow, it must have been great being so perfect and well-adjusted that you have zero qualms or complaints about living away from home for the first time ever. It also must be great being so trusting of a literal stranger that you'd be so nonchalant about your expensive stuff. That roommate is a foreign student. You are a massive idiot. This girl is in a new country, alone, away from everyone and everything she knows. Of course, she's having a hard time. What the heck? Get over yourself and gain some empathy.